1. Luis Garavito, La Bestia, Colombia. Between 1992 and 1999, Colombia's countryside became a hunting ground for one of the most sadistic predators in modern history. Luis Garavito, known as La Bestia, the Beast, was a soft-spoken man with thick glasses and a chilling smile. But behind it was a monster who targeted children. He would approach homeless or working-class boys, offering gifts, food, or the promise of work. Once isolated, he tied them up, raped, tortured, and murdered them in unspeakably brutal ways, often decapitating them or leaving mutilated remains in sugarcane fields. What made him even more terrifying? He kept detailed notebooks with victim counts and locations. When caught in 1999, Garavito confessed to murdering 138 boys, but authorities believe he may have killed over 300. His victims were aged between 6 and 16. Despite the scale of his crimes, Colombian law capped his sentence to just 22 years, though it's been extended under public pressure. This is not a Hollywood villain. Garavito is real, and he's proof that monsters don't always hide in the dark. Sometimes they walk in plain sight. 2. Pedro Lopez, the Monster of the Andes, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru. Pedro Alonso Lopez drifted through South America like a ghost, and wherever he went, little girls began disappearing. Born in 1948, Lopez claimed to have murdered over 300 girls, many between the ages of 9 and 12. He would charm small Andean towns, gain people's trust, and abduct young girls from markets or schools. What followed was sheer horror: rape, strangulation, and burial in shallow graves. In some cases, he returned to the bodies to relive the experience. Caught in Ecuador in 1980, Lopez led police to a mass grave of 53 children. He was convicted of 110 murders but may have killed hundreds more across Colombia and Peru. Shockingly, he was released from prison in 1998, and his current whereabouts are unknown. A man who openly bragged about his collection of girls was let loose upon the world. If you think evil has a face, it may look like Pedro Lopez. 3. Harold Shipman, Dr. Death, UK. To the townsfolk of Hyde, England, Dr. Harold Shipman was a pillar of the community, a calm, trustworthy physician who made house calls and treated the elderly with care. In truth, he was a cold-blooded killer who used his medical license as a weapon. Between 1975 and 1998, Shipman is believed to have killed over 250 patients, most of them elderly women, by administering lethal doses of morphine. Afterward, he would forge death certificates and medical records, claiming they died naturally. Families trusted him until too many old women died alone, at home, under his care. He was finally caught after the suspicious death of a healthy woman whose daughter demanded a second opinion. Forensic evidence of forged wills and toxicology reports unraveled one of the most terrifying cases of medical betrayal in history. Shipman never showed remorse. He hanged himself in prison in 2004. The UK's most prolific serial killer wasn't a man with a weapon. He was a man with a stethoscope. 4. Javed Iqbal, the Butcher of Lahore, Pakistan. In December 1999, Pakistani authorities received a letter confessing to one of the most nightmarish crimes in history. The writer, Javed Iqbal, a man who claimed to have killed 100 boys aged 6 to 16 in just 1 year. He didn't just confess. He gave names, photos, and detailed descriptions of how he lured runaway children into his home, strangled them, and dissolved their bodies in acid. The bones were thrown in sacks and dumped in the river. He even sent the evidence to police stations and newspapers to ensure his confession wasn't ignored. When captured, he expressed no regret, only rage at the system, claiming he wanted to show the failure of justice in Pakistan. The court sentenced him to death in the same manner as his victims: strangulation and dismemberment. Before this sentence could be carried out, Iqbal was found dead in his cell, hanging, many believe murdered by prison guards or inmates, a true embodiment of evil, methodical, proud, and emotionless. 5. H.O.H. Holmes, America's first serial killer, USA. Beneath the grand facade of a 3-story hotel near the 1893 Chicago World's Fair, H.H.R. Holmes built a labyrinth of horror. Secretly a con man and serial killer, Holmes constructed what became known as the Murder Castle, complete with soundproof rooms, trapdoors, gas chambers, and acid vats. He lured travelers, mostly women, promising lodging or jobs. Once inside, some guests were never seen again. Holmes admitted to 27 murders, though estimates suggest over 200 may have died in his death trap. He sold skeletons to medical schools, burned bodies in the furnace, and ran cons across multiple states. When caught in 1894, he confessed with chilling calmness. He was hanged in 1896, but not before describing himself as possessed by the devil. His story inspired books, documentaries, and even fictional villains. But the truth is more terrifying than fiction. Holmes was real, and he turned hospitality into a house of death. 6. Andrei Chikatilo, the Butcher of Rostov, Soviet Union. For 12 years, the Soviet Union denied the existence of a serial killer, until they caught the blood-soaked monster behind 52 horrific murders. Andrei Chikatilo preyed on women and children, luring them into forests and train stations. His killings were driven by deep sexual psychosis. He mutilated bodies, removed organs, and in many cases, consumed body parts. He would stab his victims dozens of times, often continuing long after they were dead. Police arrested the wrong people. Innocents were executed. Meanwhile, Chikatilo, a schoolteacher turned predator, kept killing. It wasn't until a stakeout in 1990 that he was finally caught, his fingernails packed with skin under them. His trial was a media circus. He screamed, laughed, and mocked the victims' families. In 1994, he was executed with a bullet to the head, a man who murdered without mercy in a country that refused to see it coming. Next is John Wayne Gacy, the killer clown, USA. He made children laugh as Pogo the Clown at birthday parties. But in the crawl space of his Chicago home, 33 boys and young men were buried, victims of a smiling psychopath. John Wayne Gacy ran a construction business, was politically active, and seemed like an ideal citizen. But he lured young men with job offers, handcuffed them, and brutally raped and strangled them, often while dressed as a clown. He buried 26 bodies beneath his home and dumped others in a nearby river. Neighbors complained of foul smells. When police finally searched his house in 1978, they uncovered the nightmare, a literal graveyard beneath his floorboards. Gacy was executed by lethal injection in 1994. His final words? "Kiss my ass." A real-life horror clown who turned smiles into screams. Lastly on the list, Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, USA. Between 1984 and 1985, Los Angeles lived in terror. At night, homes became death traps because Richard Ramirez was on the loose. Ramirez was a Satanist who killed with chilling randomness. He'd break into homes and bludgeon, stab, shoot, or rape victims, sometimes all in the same night. His killings had no pattern. Young, old, rich, poor. No one was safe. He scrawled pentagrams on walls, demanded victims swear to Satan, and left behind horror scenes drenched in blood and ritual. Captured by an angry mob in East LA in 1985, he showed no remorse. In court, he smiled, flashed devil horns, and whispered, "Hail Satan." Convicted of 13 murders and countless other crimes, Ramirez died in prison in 2013. Evil had a face, and it smiled with rotten teeth. He wasn't just a killer, he was a living nightmare.